I just watched this movie like just a couple hours ago, and it's like 9 in the morning. Um, I don't know if that was a good idea.
My God, what the hell is that?
Whatever it is, I wouldn't want to rub it the wrong way.
I'm not an expert, but these don't look like the teeth marks of a shark to me.
It's not a shark.
I think I can safely say that the creature found in your part of the ocean. Oh. Ah. Ah.
Bob's boat was attacked here. The dang thing just sits in that area.
Let's talk about a crappy movie today. Let's talk about Devilfish, or one of the 50 alternate titles it goes by. A marine biologist, a dolphin trainer, a research scientist, and a local sheriff try to hunt down a large sea monster, a shark-octopus hybrid that is devouring swimmers and fishermen off a southern Florida coast. And this movie walks away with the astounding 2.7 out of 10 on IMDb. That's pretty low, I will admit, but honestly, this movie was way more entertaining than some of the other stupid family movies that had higher ratings that I had to look at last time. So this movie was actually suggested to me, so I was interested in it because it was like, oh hey, another crappy shark movie. But this one's from the 80s. This one's different than the other ones. It came out in '84. It was from some Italian filmmakers that are pretty well known in the Italian rip-off market. And this came out to ride on the coattails of the whole Nature Strikes Back subgenre, but a lot of people also count it as a major example of Jawsploitation. In other words, basically crappy movies that are trying to rip off of Jaws. Hey, we've talked about plenty of shitty shark movies on Blockbusters, so why not go for the gold and talk about a movie that was being made back when they were still making Jaws movies? And also, this movie is different than your garden variety crappy straight-to-video or straight-to-TV shark movies like the stuff we've talked about before. This one not only came out in the 80s, but it's not actually just about a killer shark. It's about a shark-octopus hybrid. Just a couple of years before Roger Corman tried the same thing with Sharktopus. And if you're not up to date with all your Jaws ripoffs, yes, there are plenty of them that have squids and octopi and takodachis and the sort. Today we're talking about a special one. We're talking about Devilfish, or like I mentioned earlier, it goes by a bunch of different titles. It's funny, I found like 3 different copies of this movie to try and find one that was actually watchable, because the first few had like, crappy TV static and bad audio and all that kind of thing. Every single version that I found all had the same alternate title in front of them. They all were listed as Devilfish. Once I started watching them, they all had the title Monster Shark. I did eventually find that there was at least a couple copies that did have the Devilfish title, and it seems like it's more specifically the North American release. And every other version of the movie goes by some alternate title. I mean, you got Monster Shark, Shark Attack 2, Shark. They seriously just go with that generic of a name at some places. Like Devouring Waves, Red Ocean. There's a bunch of variations of that one too. There's like Attack of the Red Ocean, or like Apocalypse in the Red Ocean, and shit like that. Before we get started, I just want to mention Shark Attack 2 is also a really crappy title. It clearly sounds like a parody of one of these kind of movies, because from what I can tell, Shark Attack 1, like one of the few versions I could actually find that was legit, was originally titled something else. It was then 4 years after home video releases started selling this one as Shark Attack 2, they started selling this other movie as Shark Attack 1. 4 years after Devilfish came out. But as for this movie, I mean, you have some of the typical Jaws stuff. I mean, a bunch of dumb people on the beach end up getting attacked by a giant sea creature. Except, like I said, this time it's a shark-octopus hybrid. Except this one's a little bit different from your garden variety Jaws ripoffs. Instead of being about like some official, like a Coast Guard or a lifeguard or something like that, you have a team of scientists that are studying marine life and underwater creatures, and they keep getting news that there are bodies that are showing up on the beaches or in the waters, amputated and attacked by some creature. So they decide to try and look into the matter, and they come across that it is in fact this shark-octopus hybrid thing. And so from there, you know, two young people, a man and a woman, who end up finding love, because of course, why not, have to take on this thing until they're ultimately the last two survivors that can stop this thing for good.
I'm finally getting my vacation.
Where are we going?
To the mountains.
There's so many characters in this movie, it's actually kind of hard to keep track of them. And again, like I said, I watched this movie in the morning, so maybe sometimes I was dozing off, but I do remember there are two key characters other than the main characters that I want to address. The first one is basically the evil scientist in charge of all of this, who has the funniest death scene ever, because he finally outs himself as the one that's responsible for creating the thing, and they shoot him, and as he's dying, he has this fucking like Oscar moment where he's just like spilling his heart out about why he wanted to create the creature and all that, and it's really funny.
You won't ever be able to destroy my creature.
There's also these higher-up official characters, and unlike the mayor in Jaws, they actually do listen to them. And it's funny because when they initially go out to try and take on the thing, you know, these higher-ups, they give them state-mandated, like, machine guns to help take the thing on. And so, like, it's just, like, there's, like, this whole scene where they're, like lifting boxes of, like, you know, weapons and guns onto the boat, and I'm like, well, that wasn't in Jaws. Shit.
Over here.
On top of all of that, there's a guy who goes on the boat to try and kill the main characters.
We want a nice clean job. They have to be stopped at all costs.
Okay.
Got it?
Stopped at all costs.
And it was at that point I was just like, well, shit, this movie's got everything. Because in between all the stuff with the killer sea creature, you also have, like, tons of, like, melodramas going on. There's, like, you know, some relationships between these characters. Like,
If you think I'm doing this because Stella has a cute little ass, that's exactly right.
there's a bunch of stuff like that. Like I mentioned with the two main characters, like the two love interests, there's like a whole scene where they, you know, after they just make a narrow escape, they go to the beach, it's sunset, it looks like a fucking music video, and they start, like, you know, caressing each other and kissing, and it was just kind of like, okay, I guess we entered a different movie. It's not like the movie is, like, horribly confused in its tone or anything like that. That just felt really weird. It was like, you go from one scene of like, well, we just made a narrow escape, babe. Now we're on the beach, it's sunset, and then you got the fucking not, you know, Careless Whisper music playing. There's a scene that in every other release of the movie is in the middle of it, but the version I watched, the US release, it's actually at the beginning. There's a scene where there's this crotchety old couple. They're like are kind of being passive aggressive with each other while enjoying dinner.
You know, and I told her loudly and clearly, if they want to spend a vacation without the dinner, if they really do, then no kids. Who was it that said I never met a kid I liked? W.C. Fields, I think. Well, that's the way I feel about them when they're on my boat. Oh, I mean our boat. Carl, are you listening to me?
Yeah, Molly, I'm listening to you.
Then, of course, since they're on a boat in the middle of nowhere and it's a killer shark Jawsploitation type film, the sharktopus comes, starts rocking the boat. Oh no, my hip! And then it eventually like smashes its way in. And, you know, she looks down and sees like his corpse floating in the water. And then oh, the sharktopus smashes its way in, and you know, oh, title card. Apparently, the reason that they put it at the beginning of the movie was because they wanted to kind of hype the audience up. Because, like I said, in every other version, that scene is just smack dab in the middle of the movie. So it feels like they were trying to emulate the opening of Jaws, where the girl gets it, like, oh, you know, there's something in the water, and, you know, this poor innocent skinny dipping girl, she got it. I mean, nothing for nothing, crotchety old passive aggressive married couple from like Long Island versus skinny dipping girl from the beginning of Jaws. Yeah, not even close. It is interesting because in the first few scenes where you see like these scientists like looking at like tanks of dolphins and stuff, and you know, you got like the main lady like at her clipboard writing stuff down, I just couldn't help but be reminded of all the SeaWorld stuff from Jaws 3D. And I was like, oh man, this is a step below. It's not even ripping off the first Jaws, we're ripping off the shitty Jaws sequels.
Isn't that something? What do you do exactly?
I study their behavior here in captivity and also in their natural habitat. And right now, Dr. Bob Hogan, my associate, is at sea conducting an experiment.
Like I said, all this personal character drama, all these different relationships, some lessons are learned, some feelings are hurt, bad scientist guy ends up getting shot and has his Oscar moment. You know, finally it's up to our two main characters, the only ones that are still alive, they're the ones that have to take the thing out. I'll give this movie this. It actually juggled character drama. I wouldn't really say it did it well, but unlike a lot of Jaws ripoffs where it's like you just have cookie cutter garden variety characters like, oh, this is the not Quint, this is the not Hooper, this is the not Brody, whatever. This time they actually mixed it up a bit and had some new characters, so I'll give them that much. It's at least kind of creative compared to other Jaws ripoffs. Another reason that this movie is different than other Jaws ripoffs is that it doesn't end with the typical, oh, shove a pressurized tank in its mouth, shoot it, and then it explodes. No, this one goes a whole other mile. They go onto the water with a flamethrower to try and set the thing on fire, because they ultimately find out that fire is what kills it. And it's interesting because before that they're like, oh, well, we'll just try and shoot it or blow it up. But then they figure out that apparently if you blow it up, because it's been like some kind of like biogenetic experiment or whatever, if you try to blow it up, it'll just multiply.
Every cell of that creature is capable of reproducing similar creatures. I have here before me cells we've taken from the tentacle. They're reproducing at an incredible rate. It's a fantastic spectacle.
Doctor, are you telling me if the monster's wounded, the shreds of flesh can reproduce?
Exactly.
So, yeah, ultimately it comes down to they have to set the thing on fire. It's just so weird. There's a scene where you see these people go into the water with flamethrowers, and it's just like, holy shit, that looks... One, it looks kind of awesome, and two, it looks really fucking dangerous. Low budget as this movie is, there's actually some times where it's like, oh wow, they got a helicopter shot. That's more than I could say about Hammerhead. I mean, either, you know, they have a part where a helicopter doesn't take off or go up too high, but it's like they have a helicopter floating above the water. That's a little interesting.
Okay, 1421 here. We spotted him.
There's a couple of other things. I mean, obviously, the kind of stuff you see in stupid-ass movies like this, but, you know, there's a part where they modify, like, a buoy to have, like, a tracking device on it, and then, oh, they look back and the buoy's all destroyed. Oh, this ain't your usual shark.
Looks like it's been sabotaged.
But we haven't seen any boats for the past hour.
Yeah, except the Challenger.
It's like, you know, I'll give this movie this. It's at least kind of creative, especially compared to the other stupid shark movies I've sat through.
Why not? Why should I let my belly button
A lot of ways, this movie is kind of like when I reviewed Hammerhead. They're not very good movies, but compared to some of the other crappy shark movies I had to talk about before, like Jurassic Shark or Shark Exorcist, they're certainly more ambitious. I mean, Hammerhead was pretty much Jaws meets Island of Dr. Moreau and a little bit of like slasher movies. So this movie, you know, it was one of the first times they attempted to make it a, you know, genetically altered creature that was a mix between a shark and something else. In this case, a shark and an octopus. I think if you're into watching bad movies, then yeah, you'd probably be into this one because it is certainly one of the more entertaining Jaws ripoffs. I mean, like I said, compared to some of the other crappy shark movies that they're pumping out nowadays, like, you know, six-headed shark attack, stuff like that, this movie at least has a little bit more ambition. And I mean, like I said, they played to their strength. They didn't just rely on shitty CG because back then they couldn't. So instead they made a puppet. It wasn't very good, and they knew when to use it just enough to where you knew it was there, but they also didn't show it too much to where people could tell it was obviously fucking fake.
Get out of here! Yeah! No!
Also give it this, unlike stuff like Jurassic Shark or Shark Exorcist, the acting in it wasn't that bad. Like, the main character, the main guy in it is Michael Sopkeef, and he's actually a really good actor, even though he usually ends up in low-budget crap like this. He actually isn't that bad, and same with the leading actress. I thought she was pretty good too. From what I can tell, most of the movie was filmed in Florida, and I mean, that makes sense because the movie takes place in Florida, so I mean, you know, that was pretty accurate. Except for the third act. The third act, during like the big confrontation with the beast, that was filmed in Italy, and there's a reason for that, because it was an Italian production. Like a lot of other Italian rip-off movies, of course they tried marketing it to American audiences, but they would also film it in a bunch of different areas, and of course they were going to film in Italy because that's where the production team is from. Like a lot of Italian rip-off movies, a lot of the actors are Italian, so what they did was they had either actors who were bilingual, or they had to go back and dub them in later. And I mean, the dub work isn't horrible. I mean, it's pretty obvious in some parts, but I mean, like, in terms of crappy Italian ripoff movies, you can certainly do far worse. I mean, I'm just saying, this movie may not be as funny bad as something like Jaws 5 from Bruno Mattei, you know, Cruel Jaws, one of the most obviously bullshit Jaws ripoffs where they actually use footage wholesale from Jaws and rip off lines of dialogue from Jaws. But like I said, yeah, in terms of crappy Jaws ripoffs, if you enjoy watching dumb movies like this, I'd give it a shot. I mean, it's creative in a lot of spots. You know, practical effects aren't great, but you know, they played to their strengths in a lot of cases. Acting isn't that bad. It's somewhat creative, so yeah, bad movie, but if you like watching bad movies and you want to find out some interesting history about a movie that has 50 alternate titles for some reason, yeah, Devilfish ain't half bad. I'm not entirely sure what the next episode of Blockbusters is going to be. I'm going to try and do at least 2 or 3 more episodes for this month. Not entirely sure what the movie I'm going to talk about next is, though, so whatever it is, just look forward to the next Blockbusters episode. And until then, guys, I'm Adam Sykes of The Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.